On November 7th, 2024, my grandson David and his wife Patricia left me to die alone in a locked room with a note that said, "Take care of the old woman. We need a break." I'm Margaret Thorne. I'm 67 years old. When my granddaughter Sarah found that note, I was lying in my own waste, dehydrated, with a heart rate of 48 beats per minute. Dangerously low for someone my age. Sarah thought I was dying. She was wrong. I was very much alive. And I had been pretending to have advanced dementia for exactly 18 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Let me tell you how I got here. Thursday, November 7th, 2024, 11:47 p.m., 847 Peachtree Circle, Atlanta, Georgia. The wheels of Sarah's suitcase scraped against the concrete driveway, the sound cutting through the thick southern night air. I lay in the darkness of my room, listening, counting her footsteps. 12 steps from the car to the front door, the jingle of her keys, the click of the lock. My body was weak. That part wasn't fake. After 18 months of eating half portions of stale food and being force-fed 5 times the prescribed dosage of alprazolam, my 132-pound frame had shrunk to 107 pounds. My blood pressure hovered at 145/95. My hands trembled when I tried to grip anything heavier than a spoon. But my mind? My mind was sharp as it had ever been in my 67 years on this earth. I heard Sarah's voice echo through the empty house. "Grandma Margaret? Grandma, where is everyone?" The panic in her voice made my heart clench. Sweet Sarah, 28 years old, working 60-hour weeks at Velocity Marketing downtown, sending home $800 every month to help with what David told her were my medical expenses. Money that never reached me. Money that paid for Patricia's blonde highlights at Salon Rouge on Buckhead Avenue, $250 every 6 weeks, and David's truck payments on his 2023 Ford F-150, $687 per month. I heard her footsteps rushing through the house, living room, kitchen, hallway. Then she found it, the note David and Patricia left on the kitchen counter, held down by the ceramic salt shaker I'd bought at a church bazaar in 1997. The note I'd watched them write through the hidden camera I'd synced to Sarah's cloud account 14 months ago. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. I could picture her reading David's messy handwriting. "Sarah, deal with her. We've been dealing with the old woman for 18 months while you've been living your life. She's your responsibility now. We took Mom's car and went to Hilton Head. Back Monday. Don't call us. David." Underneath, in Patricia's precise nurse's script, "There's half a can of Ensure in the fridge. That should last her. P. Half a can. For 5 days. Sarah's footsteps pounded down the hallway toward my room. The door, the one David had installed a keyed lock on from the outside for my safety, burst open. The overhead light flicked on, burning my eyes after hours of darkness. "Grandma!" I kept my eyes half closed, my mouth slightly open. My breathing shallow and raspy, the breathing pattern of someone who'd been given too much sedative medication, which, truthfully, I had been. David had crushed up 5 pills into my oatmeal that morning. I'd held them under my tongue and spit them into a tissue when he left the room, just like I'd been doing for the past 11 months. Before that, I'd actually swallowed them, and nearly died. That was when I'd gotten smart. Sarah's hands touched my face. Her fingers were warm. I was ice cold. The room temperature was 58 degrees. David had turned off the heat to my bedroom in October. "Save on the electric bill," he'd said. "Grandma, can you hear me? It's Sarah. I'm here now. I'm going to get you help." I felt her hand slip under my head, lifting it gently. Water touched my cracked lips. Warm water. She'd heated it, my smart girl. Cold water could send my weakened system into shock. I let myself swallow. Small sips. My body was genuinely dehydrated. That part of David and Patricia's neglect had been real and dangerous. "That's it, Grandma. Drink slowly. Slowly." She laid me back down on the thin mattress, the one David had moved me to in March, taking my original queen-sized bed for the guest room. Because Patricia's mother might visit. Patricia's mother, Dorothy Sullivan, lived in Naples, Florida, and hadn't visited in 4 years. I heard Sarah moving around the room, the squeak of the bathroom faucet, water running into the plastic basin, the smell of the lavender soap I used to keep in the guest bathroom. Sarah must have found it. She came back and began washing my face with a warm cloth. Gently, carefully. The way I'd washed her face when she was 3 years old and had come to live with me after her mother, my baby sister Denise, died in a car accident on I-285. That was 25 years ago. I'd raised Sarah from age 3 to 18, paid for her to attend Spelman College, $31,824 per year tuition, helped her with her first apartment deposit, $1,200, bought her first work laptop, $847, and she'd never forgotten, never taken advantage, never asked for anything beyond what was fair. Unlike David, Sarah cleaned my arms, my hands, my neck. She found clean pajamas in the small dresser, one of the only pieces of furniture left in what used to be my master bedroom. She changed my clothes with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd watched me care for her great-grandmother before she passed in 2006. The whole time, she was crying. "I'm so sorry, Grandma," she whispered. "I shouldn't have gone on that trip. I shouldn't have left you alone with them. I knew something wasn't right. I should have known." She had known. 3 months ago, she'd asked me directly, "Grandma, are David and Patricia treating you okay?" I'd blinked at her with empty eyes and said, "David? Who's David?" Playing my role, testing her love. And she'd stayed. She'd moved back into the house, sleeping in the smallest bedroom, working from home 3 days a week, just to keep an eye on things. Until Velocity Marketing sent her to a mandatory 5-day conference in Orlando. She'd asked David to postpone. He'd insisted she go. "Your career is important," he'd said with his charming smile. "We'll take good care of Grandma." I lay there, letting Sarah tend to me, and felt the weight of what I'd done to myself. To test them. To prove what I already suspected deep in my bones. My grandson wanted me dead, and now I had 18 months of evidence to prove it. Sarah finished cleaning me up and reached for her phone. "I'm calling 911, Grandma. You need to go to the hospital. Your breathing is—" My hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Sarah gasped. For the first time in 18 months, 2 weeks and 3 days, I opened my eyes fully. Clear. Focused. Alert. "Don't," I said. My voice was hoarse from disuse, but the word was unmistakable. Firm. Completely lucid. Sarah's phone clattered to the floor. "Grandma, you can talk?" I sat up, slowly because my muscles had genuinely atrophied. But I sat up on my own, without assistance, without the trembling confusion that had characterized every movement for a 1.5 years. "Yes, child," I said, "I can talk. Now lock that door and close those curtains. We have a lot to discuss, and not much time." Sarah stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. The doctor said you had dementia. You haven't recognized me in over a year. You couldn't feed yourself. You couldn't—" "The doctor said I had early-stage dementia," I corrected her. "Mild cognitive impairment, diagnosed April 18th, 2023. I do have it, Sarah. I forget where I put my reading glasses. Sometimes I lose track of what day it is, but I'm not gone. Not yet." I gestured to the door. "Lock it, please." Sarah moved mechanically, her mind clearly trying to process what was happening. She turned the lock that was supposed to keep me in, now keeping David and Patricia out if they returned early. She closed the heavy curtains that blocked the view from the backyard. Then she sat on the edge of my bed, staring at me like I was a ghost. "How?" she whispered. "How is this possible?" I took her hands in mine. They were shaking. 18 months ago, after the diagnosis, I made a decision. I needed to know the truth about the people in this house, about what would happen to me when I became truly vulnerable. I reached under the thin mattress and pulled out a smartphone, a budget track phone I'd ordered online before my decline became severe, paid for with cash from an old savings account David didn't know about. "So I gave them a test," I continued. "I pretended to be much sicker than I was. I documented everything. It started simply enough. May 2023, 1 month after my diagnosis. David sat me down at the kitchen table, this table we're sitting at now, and asked about my financial situation. "Grandma," he'd said, pouring me coffee with a concerned expression, "Patricia and I have been talking. If your dementia gets worse, we need to know about your assets, for your protection." I'd told him the truth. The house at 847 Peachtree Circle, purchased in 1989 for $78,000, now worth approximately $340,000. My retirement savings from 40 years as a social worker, $180,000 in a Vanguard account. My checking account at SunTrust Bank with roughly $3,200. My monthly Social Security, $1,847. His eyes had lit up like a slot machine hitting jackpot. 2 weeks later, May 29th, 2023, Patricia presented me with papers. "It's just a medical power of attorney," she'd said sweetly, "so I can help you manage your health care if you can't make decisions. Standard procedure for dementia patients." I'd signed it, but not before taking pictures of every page with my hidden phone. June 2023, I began my decline, forgetting names, leaving the stove on, walking into rooms and seeming confused about why I was there. But I was documenting, always documenting. The smartphone, kept hidden in an old hardcover Bible on my bookshelf, had a voice-activated recording app that ran 24/7. Every conversation in my room, every cruel word, every admission of their plan. July 2023. David and Patricia started reducing my meals when Sarah wasn't home. They'd prepare a full plate, wait for Sarah to leave for work, then scrape half of it into the trash. "She won't remember eating anyway," Patricia had said on July 15th at 2:47 p.m. Her voice crystal clear on my recording. August 2023. They moved me from my master bedroom to this smaller back room. Sarah had been away that weekend at a work retreat in Savannah. "We need the master bedroom," David had announced. "It's wasted on someone who doesn't even know where she is." He'd taken my comfortable queen mattress, my dresser, my reading chair, left me with a twin bed from the garage and one small plastic dresser. September 2023. The medication started. I was prescribed alprazolam, generic Xanax for anxiety. 0.5 milligrams twice daily. But David wasn't giving me 0.5 milligrams. He was crushing up 5 pills, 2.5 milligrams, into my morning oatmeal. 5 times the prescribed dose. For a woman my age, with my existing heart condition, mild arrhythmia, diagnosed 2019, that dosage was dangerous, potentially fatal. On September 23rd, I swallowed the full dose. My heart rate dropped to 43 beats per minute. I nearly died. That was when I got smart. Started holding the crushed pills under my tongue, spitting them out later. But I let my behavior suggest the pills were working. Slurring my speech. Sleeping 14 hours a day. Becoming docile and confused. October 2023. The stealing started in earnest. Patricia, with her medical power of attorney, began making withdrawals from my checking account. $500 here. Medical supplies. $200 there. Specialist consultation. $800. Prescription medications. None of it true. I checked the bank statements on my hidden phone. Every single transaction. By November 2023, she'd taken $8,240. December 2023. They installed the lock on my bedroom door. "For your safety," David said, "so you don't wander at night and hurt yourself." January 2024. Sarah moved back in, suspicious of my rapid decline. David and Patricia put on a show. Full meals when Sarah was home. Kind words, gentle touches. But the recordings told a different story. January 18th, 2024. 10:23 p.m., David and Patricia's bedroom, picked up by the baby monitor they put in my room, to hear if I needed help. David: "How much longer is this going to take?" Patricia: "The pills are working. Her heart rate is consistently in the low 50s now. Any lower and she'll have cardiac arrest. We just need to be patient." David: "We're $47,000 in debt, Patricia. Credit card's maxed. The truck payment is late. I can't be patient." Patricia: Then maybe we increase the dosage. One more pill won't raise suspicion. Old people die from heart attacks all the time. I'd recorded that conversation, saved it in 3 different cloud accounts, sent copies to an email address David didn't know existed. February through October 2024. The pattern continued. By early November, Patricia had stolen $47,320 from my checking account, including my entire October Social Security payment of $1,847. Sarah sat motionless, her face drained of color as I told her everything. But why? She finally asked. Why would you put yourself through this? I looked at her steadily. Because I needed to know the truth. I needed evidence that would hold up in court. And I needed to see... I paused, choosing my words carefully. I needed to see if anyone would love me when I had nothing to offer but burden. I squeezed her hands. You did, Sarah. You came back. You gave up job opportunities. You stayed. Of course I did, she whispered. You're my grandmother. You raised me. David is my grandson. I raised him too. Since he was 8 years old, after his parents, my brother Thomas and his wife Carol, died in that car accident on I-75. I let that sink in. Same love, same home, same chances, different choices. The clock on the wall read 1:15 a.m. What happens now? Sarah asked. I smiled for the first time in 18 months. Now, child, we prepare for war. But first I need you to help me stand up. My muscles are genuinely weak, and we have a lot of work to do before Monday morning. Friday, November 8th, 2024, 1:47 a.m., 847 Peachtree Circle, Atlanta, Georgia. Sarah helped me to my feet. My legs trembled. 18 months of limited movement had taken a real toll. But I forced myself to stand straight, to remember who Margaret Eleanor Thorne had been before this nightmare. We don't have much time, I said, gripping Sarah's arm for support. They left Thursday morning. That note said they'd be back Monday. That gives us 3.5 days. 3.5 days for what? Sarah asked, helping me shuffle toward the door. To build an airtight case. To contact my lawyer. To set a trap they can't escape from. We moved slowly through the darkened house. Every step reminded me of my physical weakness, but it also fueled my resolve. They'd done this to me. Deliberately. Methodically. And I had the evidence to prove it. Sarah settled me on the living room couch, the good couch I hadn't been allowed to sit on in over a year. She brought me water, real food from the refrigerator, leftover rotisserie chicken, fresh grapes, cheese, and a blanket. While I ate, she grabbed her laptop. Show me everything, she said. I pulled up my track phone and opened the cloud account. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the organized folders. Audio recordings, 847 files. Bank statements, 23 files, photographs, 392 files. Video, security camera sync, 118 files. Medical records, 15 files. Grandma, Sarah breathed. This is massive. Open the bank statements folder, I instructed. She clicked. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet appeared, each one meticulously documenting Patricia's theft. March 15th, 2024, $800. Medical supplies. Actually, hair salon, Lenox Mall. April 3rd, 2024, $1,200. Doctor consultation. Actually, weekend trip to Savannah. May 22nd, 2024, $2,100. Prescription refills. Actually, David's truck payment plus insurance. June 8th, 2024, $1,500 physical therapy. Actually, Patricia's Botox Buckhead Med Spa. The list went on and on. Total amount stolen, I said quietly, as of November 1st, 2024, $47,320. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. Oh my God. Now open the audio files. Start with the one labeled January 18th, 10:23 p.m. She clicked play. David and Patricia's voices filled the quiet room. Patricia, the pills are working. Her heart rate is consistently in the low 50s now. Any lower and she'll have cardiac arrest. David, We're $47,000 in debt, Patricia. I can't be patient. Patricia: then maybe we increase the dosage. One more pill won't raise suspicion. Sarah's face went white. She stopped the recording. They were trying to kill you, she whispered. This isn't just neglect. This is attempted murder. Yes, I said simply. Which is why we need to be very, very careful about how we proceed. After a few hours of sleep on the couch, Sarah refused to let me go back to that room. I made a phone call. Hayes & Associates Law Firm, how may I direct your call? Robert Hayes, please. Tell him it's Margaret Thorne calling. Robert Hayes had been my lawyer for 35 years. He'd handled my husband Thomas's will when he died in 2009. He'd reviewed the deed when we paid off the house in 2001. He was 58 years old now, with silver hair and the sharpest legal mind in Atlanta. He was also one of my oldest friends. Margaret? His voice came through warm with concern. I haven't heard from you in almost 2 years. Are you all right? No, Robert, I'm not. But I will be. I need you to come to my house today and bring your son, James. I need a police officer as a witness. There was a pause. What's going on? I've been documenting elder abuse and attempted murder for 18 months. I have 847 audio recordings, bank records showing $47,320 in theft, and video evidence of medication tampering, and the perpetrators will be back in this house Monday morning. Another pause, longer this time. I'll be there in 2 hours. And Margaret? Yes? I'm bringing a digital forensics expert, too. We need to make sure all this evidence is admissible in court. Robert Hayes arrived with 3 people. His son, James Hayes, Atlanta PD, 32 years old in uniform, a woman named Erlinda Edward, digital forensics expert, 40s, and retired Judge Dorothy Williams, my neighbor and friend from 2 houses down. Dorothy walked straight to me and hugged me carefully. I knew something was wrong, she said, her 70-year-old frame surprisingly strong. I haven't seen you outside in months. Those 2 always said you were resting. I was gathering evidence, I replied. We sat around my dining room table, the table where David had asked me about my financial situation 18 months ago. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. Walk me through everything, Margaret, from the beginning. For the next 3 hours, I told them everything. Sarah pulled up files on her laptop. Dr. Edward verified the digital evidence, confirming timestamps, metadata, and authenticity. Robert took meticulous notes. When I played the January 18th recording about increasing my medication dosage, James Hayes' jaw clenched. That's conspiracy to commit murder, he said quietly. First degree. When we reviewed the bank statements, Dr. Edward cross-referenced them with Patricia's medical power of attorney documents. She was authorized to manage your healthcare decisions, Dr. Edward said. She was not authorized to access your bank accounts. This is financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult under Georgia Code 16-5100. Each withdrawal is a separate felony. Robert looked up from his notes. Margaret, this is enough to put them away for 15 to 20 years, maybe more. I don't want them in prison forever, I said quietly. I want justice. I want them to face consequences. But David is still my grandson. Dorothy squeezed my hand. Justice doesn't always mean mercy, Margaret. No, I agreed. But it doesn't always mean cruelty either. We spent the weekend preparing. Robert filed emergency protective orders. Dr. Edward created a forensic report documenting every piece of evidence. James Hayes coordinated with the district attorney's office. And I rested, ate real food, let Sarah help me walk around the house, rebuilding my strength. On Sunday evening, Sarah helped me bathe properly for the first time in months. She washed my hair with my good shampoo, the lavender one I'd bought from the farmer's market years ago, which Patricia had declared too expensive for someone who doesn't know the difference. I knew the difference. After, Sarah helped me dress in clothes from my old closet, a navy blue dress I'd worn to church. Comfortable but dignified. The woman I used to be. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, the first time in 18 months. I looked old, thin, tired, but my eyes were clear, alert, alive. "Ready for tomorrow?" Sarah asked. "Ready," I said. None of us slept much that night. Sarah and I sat in the living room. Robert, James, and Dorothy were positioned in the kitchen, out of sight from the front door. Dr. Edward had set up additional recording equipment, professional grade, admissible in court. We waited. At 3:52 a.m., we heard a car pull into the driveway. David's Ford F-150, the one he was 3 months behind on payments for. "They're early," Sarah whispered. "They're eager," I corrected. Through the window, I watched 3 people get out of the truck. David, Patricia, and a third woman I'd never met but recognized from photos on David's phone, which he'd left on the kitchen counter several times, unlocked, careless of him. Jennifer Walsh, 35 years old, real estate agent, auburn hair, the woman David had been having an affair with for 11 months, the woman he'd promised to marry as soon as the old lady dies and we get the house money. I'd heard him say it. February 24th, 2024, 11:17 p.m. Recording saved. They approached the door, talking in hushed but excited voices. "Finally back. I bet the old bat didn't even notice we were gone." That was David's voice. "Do you think Sarah actually fed her?" Patricia's voice, tinged with something that might have been guilt or just fear of getting caught. "Who cares? If she didn't, that just speeds things up for us." David again. Jennifer laughed, a high-pitched, cruel sound. "When do I get to see the house?" "Our house?" "Our house." She called it our house. The key turned in the lock. I sat up straight on the couch, hands folded in my lap. Sarah stood beside me, phone recording. In the kitchen, Robert, James, and Dorothy waited in silence. The door opened. David stepped in first, not bothering to turn on the light. "Sarah, you here?" He flicked the light switch. The chandelier blazed to life, the crystal one Thomas and I had bought for our 25th anniversary in 2004. David, Patricia, and Jennifer stood frozen in the doorway, staring at me. I stared back. "Hello, David," I said. My voice was steady, clear, completely lucid. David's mouth fell open. "Grandma, you're sitting on the good couch?" I finished. "Yes, I am. Please, come in. Close the door. We have a lot to discuss." Patricia's face went from shock to panic in seconds. "You can talk. How are you?" "Talking? Walking? Aware?" I smiled without warmth. "I've been aware this entire time, every single day, every single moment." Jennifer started backing toward the door. "Don't," said a voice from the kitchen. Officer James Hayes stepped into view in full uniform, hand resting on his belt. Jennifer froze. Robert Hayes and Dorothy Williams followed, taking positions on either side of the living room. "Everyone, please sit down," Robert said in his lawyer voice. Calm, professional, absolutely in control. "We have some matters to discuss regarding Mrs. Margaret Thorne's estate, her care, and certain financial discrepancies that have come to light." David found his voice first. "What is this? Some kind of intervention?" "No, David," I said. "This is a reckoning." Robert set his briefcase on the coffee table and opened it. He pulled out a thick folder. "Mr. David Thorne, Mrs. Patricia Thorne, and Ms. Jennifer Walsh. I'm Robert Hayes, attorney for Mrs. Margaret Thorne. Present here are Officer James Hayes of the Atlanta Police Department and retired Judge Dorothy Williams, serving as witnesses to these proceedings." Patricia started to cry. Not tears of remorse, tears of fear. "These proceedings?" David demanded. "What proceedings? This is my house. My grandmother is sick. She doesn't know what she's—" "Your grandmother," Robert interrupted, "has been fully cognizant for the past 18 months. During that time, she has been documenting systematic elder abuse, financial exploitation, and attempted murder." The room went silent. "That's ridiculous," David said, but his voice cracked. "She has dementia. She can't—" "I had early-stage dementia," I said. "Mild cognitive impairment, not advanced dementia, not incompetence. The doctors can confirm this, and they will, in court." Robert pulled out the first document. Let's start with the financial exploitation. He laid out bank statements on the coffee table, one by one. March 15th, 2024. Mrs. Patricia Thorne withdrew $800 from Mrs. Margaret Thorne's checking account, claiming medical supplies. In reality, Mrs. Thorne's medical records show no such supplies were purchased. However, credit card records show Patricia Thorne made a payment to Salon Rouge on Buckhead Avenue for $250 that same day. Patricia's face went pale. April 3rd. $2,200 withdrawal. Claimed reason. Specialist consultation. No such consultation occurred. However, hotel records show David and Patricia Thorne spent that weekend at the Bohemian Hotel in Savannah. Total cost, $1,187. David started to speak. Robert held up a hand. I'm not finished. May 22nd, $200. June 8th, $1,500. July 19th, $900. August 3rd, $1,150. He spread the statements out like a dealer spreading cards. Total amount stolen between March 15th, 2024 and November 1st, 2024, $47,320. That's not, we needed that money for, Patricia stammered. For what? I asked quietly. For your hair, for David's truck, for your weekend getaways while I lay in a locked room eating stale crackers? Robert pulled out another document. This is the medical power of attorney Patricia Thorne had Mrs. Thorne sign in May 2023. It grants authority over healthcare decisions only. It does not grant access to bank accounts. Yet somehow Patricia managed to withdraw money repeatedly. Dr. Edwards stepped forward. I examined Mrs. Thorne's bank account access logs. Patricia Thorne used a forged signature on withdrawal slips and unauthorized access codes. This constitutes identity theft under Georgia Code 169181, in addition to financial exploitation. Jennifer spoke for the first time. I didn't know about any of this. I just met David a few months ago. February 24th, 2024, I said, looking directly at her. 11:17 p.m. You and David were in his truck parked at Piedmont Park. He told you, and I quote, as soon as the old lady dies and we get the house money, I'll divorce Patricia and we'll get married. The house is worth at least $340,000. We'll have enough for a down payment on that condo you want in Midtown. Jennifer's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. I have the recording, I said. David left his phone in the kitchen with location services on. It picked up every word. Robert wasn't done. He pulled out another folder, this one thicker. Now let's discuss the medication. He laid out pill bottles, prescription records, and medical reports. Mrs. Thorne was prescribed alprazolam, 0.5 milligrams twice daily for anxiety. Standard dosage for a woman her age. He paused. However, video evidence shows David Thorne crushing 5 pills, 2.5 milligrams, into her food each morning. James Hayes stepped forward. That's 5 times the prescribed dose. For a 67-year-old woman with a pre-existing heart condition, that dosage could cause cardiac arrest. Patricia's tears turned to sobs. We didn't mean for it to go that far. We just wanted her to be calm, to sleep more, to be easier to manage. Easier to kill, you mean? Dorothy Williams said sharply. Robert played an audio recording. Patricia and David's voices filled the room. David, how much longer is this going to take? Patricia, her heart rate is consistently in the low 50s now. Any lower and she'll have cardiac arrest. David, then maybe we increase the dosage. The recording stopped. That, Robert said quietly, is conspiracy to commit murder. First degree. David's face had gone from red to white. We were desperate. We're $60,000 in debt. We had no choice. You had a choice, Sarah shouted, speaking for the first time. You could have asked for help. You could have gotten jobs. You could have not stolen from the woman who raised you. Sarah, David turned to her, pleading. You don't understand. The pressure, the bills. We were drowning. I understand perfectly, Sarah said coldly. I work 60-hour weeks. I send money home every month. Money you stole. And I still managed not to try to murder our grandmother. Robert closed his briefcase. Here's what happens next. Officer Hayes is placing you under arrest for multiple felonies: attempted murder, elder abuse in the first degree, financial exploitation, identity theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Wait, David said. Wait, please. Grandma, we can fix this. We'll pay back the money. We'll move out. Just don't press charges. Please. I looked at my grandson, the boy I'd raised from age 8. The boy I'd fed, clothed, and loved for 34 years. The man who'd tried to kill me for a house and a retirement account. David, I said quietly, you have 72 hours to remove all your belongings from this house. After that, anything left becomes mine to dispose of. You are trespassers now. But where will we go? Patricia wailed. I don't know, I said, and I don't care. Maybe you should have thought about that before you left me to die in a locked room. Officer Hayes stepped forward with handcuffs. David Thorne, Patricia Thorne, you're under arrest. The click of the metal cuffs echoed in the silent house. The police car pulled away from my house as the sun rose over Atlanta. Through the window, I watched David's head bowed in the back seat, Patricia sobbing beside him. Jennifer Walsh had been released with a citation. She'd be called as a witness, but she wasn't going to jail. Not today. Sarah stood beside me, her hand in mine. It's really over, she whispered. No, I said quietly. It's just beginning. Robert Hayes gathered his papers, preparing to leave. Margaret, the DA will contact you within 48 hours. This case is solid. They'll likely offer a plea deal to avoid trial. But with evidence this strong, you're looking at significant prison time for both of them. How long? I asked. For David? Attempted murder, conspiracy, elder abuse, financial exploitation. He's facing 20 to 30 years. Patricia slightly less because she can argue she was coerced by David. Maybe 15 to 20. I closed my eyes. My grandson. 20 to 30 years. They made their choices, Dorothy Williams said firmly. She'd stayed through the whole ordeal. You gave them every opportunity to do right. They chose cruelty. I know, I said, but knowing doesn't make it hurt less. 2 moving trucks arrived at my house. Not for David and Patricia. They were in jail, bail set at $100,000 each, which they couldn't afford. These trucks were for me. Sarah had called a junk removal company. We were clearing out everything David and Patricia had brought into my house. Every piece of cheap furniture they'd replaced my belongings with. Every trace of their presence. The workers carried out the flat-screen TV David had bought on credit. $1,847 still unpaid. The gaming console he'd played every evening while I lay locked in my room. Patricia's collection of designer purses, 11 of them. Total value approximately $8,200, all purchased with my stolen money. What do you want us to do with these, ma'am? The crew chief asked, holding up a purse. Donate everything that has value, I said. Sell it if you can. Send the proceeds to the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Sarah smiled. That's perfect, Grandma. By evening, the house was half empty. But it wasn't sad empty. It was clean empty, ready for a fresh start. I sat across from Assistant District Attorney Michelle Washington, a black woman in her early 40s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Thorne, she said, reviewing the evidence files. In my 15 years as a prosecutor, I've never seen a case this well documented. You did our job for us. I was a social worker for 40 years, I replied. I know how these cases usually end. The victim has no proof, and the abuser walks free. I wasn't going to let that happen. She nodded. David and Patricia's public defenders have already approached us about a plea deal. They know they can't win at trial. What are they offering? David, guilty plea to attempted murder and financial exploitation. 15 years, eligible for parole after 10. Patricia, guilty plea to conspiracy and financial exploitation. 12 years, eligible for parole after 8. I sat back in my chair. 15 years. David would be 57 when he got out. Still time to build a life. What do you recommend? I asked. Take it, Michelle said. A trial would be emotionally exhausting for you. This way, justice is served, and you can move on. I thought about it for a long moment. I'll agree on one condition, I finally said. Both of them must participate in therapy while incarcerated. Real therapy, not just going through the motions. I want reports submitted to the court quarterly. Michelle raised an eyebrow. You want them to get help? I want them to understand what they did, to become people who wouldn't do it again. That's real justice. She smiled slightly. I'll make it part of the plea agreement. I stood on my front porch, coffee cup in hand, watching the neighborhood wake up. The morning air was crisp. Atlanta autumn at its finest. 70 degrees, clear blue sky, the smell of Mrs. Henderson's gardenias drifting over from 3 houses down. 1 year had passed since that terrible night. 1 year since I'd stopped pretending. I was 68 years old now. My hair was fully gray. I'd stopped dyeing it months ago. My weight was back up to 128 pounds, healthy for my frame. I walked 30 minutes every morning around the neighborhood, sometimes with Dorothy Williams, sometimes alone. The house at 847 Peachtree Circle looked different now. Sarah and I had spent months restoring it. We'd repainted the walls in warm colors, sage green in the living room, soft yellow in the kitchen. We'd replaced the furniture David had sold or ruined. We'd opened all the curtains, let the light back in. My master bedroom was mine again. The small back room where I'd spent 18 months, we'd converted it into a home office for the Margaret Thorne Foundation for Elder Justice. Sarah sat at the desk, laptop open, going through emails. Grandma, we have 3 new cases this week, she said. A 71-year-old woman in Decatur whose daughter is stealing her Social Security checks. An 80-year-old man in Marietta whose son locked him in the basement. And a 69-year-old woman whose caregiver is forging her signature on checks. I sat in the comfortable chair by the window, the reading chair Thomas had bought me in 1995. Set up consultations with all 3, I said, and contact Robert Hayes. They'll need legal representation. The Margaret Thorne Foundation had started small. With the $150,000 I'd put in a trust account before my decline, money David never knew about, and the $47,320 in restitution money David and Patricia were required to pay back, we'd created a nonprofit dedicated to helping elder abuse victims. We provided free legal consultations, emergency housing assistance, medical care coordination, emotional support and therapy referrals, education about financial protection. In 1 year, we'd helped 73 people escape abusive situations. 73 people who might otherwise have died in silence. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Thorne? This is Counselor Bradley from Metro State Prison. I'm calling about David Thorne. My heart clenched. Is he all right? He's fine, physically, but he's been asking to speak with you. He's written you several letters. Have you received them? No, I said. And that was true. I'd instructed the prison to hold any mail from David. I wasn't ready, until now. Send them, I said. All of them. 5 letters arrived via courier. 5 letters from David, written over the past 11 months. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where this had all started, and read them in order. Letter number 1, December 2024. Grandma, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to even read this. But my therapist says I need to write it anyway. I'm sorry. Those words aren't enough. They'll never be enough. But I'm sorry for what I did to you, for what I tried to do. I was jealous of Sarah, of the way you looked at her. I felt like I was never good enough, like I was a burden you took in because you had to, not because you wanted to. That doesn't excuse anything. I know that. But I need you to know, I never wanted to actually kill you. I just wanted, I don't know what I wanted. Money, freedom, respect. I'm a coward, and I'm paying for it now. David letter number 2, February 2025. Grandma, I'm in therapy 3 times a week now. It's part of the plea deal, but I'm actually going. Actually talking. Do you know what I learned? I've been angry my whole life. At my parents for dying. At the drunk driver who killed them. At Uncle Thomas for not being there. At you for not being my mother. That's messed up, I know. You gave me everything. Home, food, love, college tuition. But I wanted my mom. And when I couldn't have her, I resented everyone else for being alive. I'm trying to understand myself. To become someone who wouldn't do what I did. Not for you. For me. Because I can't live with who I was. David E. I read through all 5 letters. Each one showed progression. Understanding. Growth. Maybe. Or maybe it was manipulation. I'd been a social worker too long to take anyone's word at face value. But there was only one way to find out. I hadn't told Sarah I was coming. She would have tried to stop me or insisted on coming with me. This was something I needed to do alone. The visiting room was exactly what you'd imagine. Gray walls, metal tables, the smell of industrial cleaning solution. Other families sat at various tables, children crying, women with tired eyes visiting husbands or sons. And then David walked in. I barely recognized him. He'd lost at least 40 pounds. His face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp. His prison uniform hung loose on his frame. His hair was buzzed short, but his eyes were different. Clear, present. Aware in a way they hadn't been in years. He sat down across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then David started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears streaming down his face. I didn't think you'd come, he finally said. Neither did I admitted. We sat in silence for another minute. Then I said, Tell me why. David took a shaky breath. Jealousy, fear, shame, all of it mixed together until I couldn't see straight anymore. Explain. When Mom and Dad died, I was 8 years old. You took me in, you and Uncle Thomas. You gave me a home, food, clothes, love, everything a kid could need. He paused. But I always felt like I was the consolation prize. Like you took me because you had to, not because you wanted me. That's not true, I said quietly. I know that now, but at 8 years old, 10, 15, I felt it. And then when Sarah came to live with us, and you two just connected so easily. She called you Grandma right away. She hugged you. She loved you without all my baggage. He wiped his eyes. I resented her. I resented you. I resented everyone for not being my parents. So you decided to kill me? The bluntness of the question made him flinch. No, I decided to make you not matter. If I could convince myself you were just an obstacle, just a source of money, then maybe it wouldn't hurt so much that you weren't my mom. He looked down at his hands that had crushed pills into my food. But then it became real. The pills, the stealing, the plan, and I couldn't stop. Patricia and I were drowning in debt. $60,000 from her credit cards, my gambling, her shopping. We convinced ourselves we deserved your money because we were taking care of you. You were killing me, I said flatly. I know. God, Grandma, I know. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. The silence stretched between us. Finally, I asked the question I'd come here to ask. Are you sorry because you got caught? Or because of what you did? David looked me straight in the eye. Both, he said. At first, I was only sorry I got caught. In those first weeks in here, all I could think about was how stupid I'd been, how I'd left evidence, how I'd underestimated you. He took a breath. But therapy, real therapy, not just showing up, it's broken something open in me. And now I'm sorry for what I did, for the pain I caused you, for the 18 months you suffered because I was too cowardly to just ask for help. Do you expect me to forgive you? No, he said immediately. I don't think I deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm changing. I'm taking college classes here, psychology. I'm helping other inmates with their GED prep. I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do what I did. He paused. Not to earn your forgiveness, just to be able to look at myself in the mirror. I studied him for a long moment. This was the gamble. Did I believe him? Could people really change? In my 40 years as a social worker, I'd seen both. People who changed fundamentally and people who just got better at pretending. Which was David. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." David nodded, accepting this. "I understand. But," I continued, "I don't hate you, and I hope, genuinely hope, that you do change. Because the world doesn't need more people like the David you were. It needs more people like the David you're trying to become." For the first time in the conversation, something like hope flickered in David's eyes. Not hope for forgiveness, hope for redemption. "Thank you," he whispered, "for coming, for listening, for everything you did for me, even when I didn't deserve it." I stood to leave. "Grandma?" David said. I turned back. "I'm proud of the foundation. I read about it in the paper. You're saving people, like you tried to save me." "The difference," I said quietly, "is that those people want to be saved." I walked out of the prison visiting room and didn't look back. My dining room table was full for the first time in 2 years. Sarah sat on my right, Robert Hayes and his son James on my left, Dorothy Williams and her daughter Christina across from me, Dr. Linda Edward and her husband, Mrs. Henderson from down the street, and 3 clients from the foundation, Eleanor, Marcus, and Virginia, elderly people we'd helped escape abusive situations. They had nowhere to go for Thanksgiving, so I'd invited them here. We held hands around the table, and Dorothy said grace. "Lord, we thank you for this food, for this gathering, and for Margaret Thorne, a woman who turned her suffering into salvation for others. Amen." "Amen," we echoed. As we ate turkey and dressing, collard greens and cornbread, sweet potato pie and pecan pie, I looked around at these faces, this chosen family. A year ago, I'd been alone in a locked room, pretending to be someone I wasn't, documenting my own abuse. Today, I was surrounded by people who loved me, not for what I could give them, but for who I was. After dinner, Sarah and I stood on the back porch, looking at the garden we'd planted together in the spring. Tomatoes, peppers, flowers. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked. "Legacy," I said. "What we leave behind. You've left a lot, Grandma. The foundation, the people you've helped, the legal precedents this case set. Georgia passed new elder protection laws because of you." "Maybe," I said, "but I think the real legacy is simpler than that." "What do you mean?" I turned to her. "I spent 18 months testing whether anyone would love me when I had nothing to offer but need. You passed that test, Sarah. You loved me anyway. That's the legacy, teaching you that love isn't transactional. That family is what we choose, not what we're born into." Sarah hugged me tight. "You taught me that by example, Grandma, every day of my life." The foundation continued growing. We hired a full-time social worker, a part-time lawyer, and a coordinator. We moved the office out of my house and into a small building downtown. I still consulted on cases, but mostly I focused on advocacy, speaking at churches, community centers, and senior centers about elder abuse, teaching people the warning signs, empowering them to document, to speak up, to seek help. The local news interviewed me, then CNN, then NPR's This American Life dedicated an episode to my story. Publishers reached out about a memoir. I was considering it, not for the money, but because if my story could help even one person, it would be worth it. June 2026, 18 months after the arrests, I received a letter from Patricia, the first communication I'd had from her. "Mrs. Thorne, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably won't read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I was weak. I let David convince me that what we were doing was okay, that you wouldn't know the difference, that we were owed something for taking care of you. I was wrong. Terribly, inexcusably wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking you to write back. I just need you to know that I'm in therapy. I'm taking accountability, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to atone." The woman who hurt you is not who I want to be. Patricia, I read the letter twice. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I wrote back, not with forgiveness, not with reconciliation, but with something David and Patricia had never given me. Honesty. Patricia, I received your letter. I appreciate your apology, though it doesn't undo the harm. What you and David did to me was cruel beyond measure. You didn't just steal my money or endanger my health. You stole my dignity, my autonomy, my sense of safety in my own home. I will never forget that. I may never fully forgive it. But I acknowledge that you're trying to change. That's more than many people do. I hope your therapy is genuine. I hope you become someone who would never hurt a vulnerable person again. The world needs fewer people who abuse power and more people who protect the powerless. I won't be visiting you. I won't be writing again. But I will say this. The fact that you're capable of remorse means you're capable of change. What you do with that capability is up to you. Margaret Thorne. I sealed the letter and sent it. Then I closed that chapter of my life for good. I'm 69 years old now. My hair is silver, my face is lined, my body is slower than it used to be. But I'm alive. Truly alive, not just existing. The Margaret Thorne Foundation has helped 247 people in 2 years. We've secured $1.2 million in restitution for victims. We've put 18 abusers in prison. Sarah graduated with her MSW, Master of Social Work, in May. She's the Foundation's Director of Client Services now. David has 7 more years before he's eligible for parole. His therapy reports are good. His behavior is exemplary. Maybe he really is changing. Patricia has 6 years left. She's teaching literacy classes to other inmates. Small steps. Jennifer Walsh moved to Florida. I heard she got married. I hope she chose better this time. I stand in my master bedroom, the room I was denied for so long. Morning sun streams through the windows. I can hear Sarah making coffee in the kitchen. Dorothy Williams will be here soon for our morning walk. I look at myself in the mirror. Really look. I see a survivor, a fighter, a woman who refused to die quietly in a locked room. But I also see something else. Peace. The greatest victory wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice, though justice mattered. The greatest victory was reclaiming my own life, my own voice, my own power. At 69 years old, I learned that you're never too old to fight back, never too old to demand dignity, never too old to start over, and perhaps most importantly, that family is not defined by blood or obligation, but by love, respect, and choice. I chose Sarah. She chose me. That is family. I walk to the kitchen where Sarah is pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one that says World's Best Grandma, that she gave me 15 years ago. Ready for your walk, Grandma? She asks, smiling. Ready, I say. We step out onto the front porch. The November morning is cool and perfect. Dorothy waves from her driveway, walking toward us. As we begin our walk through the neighborhood I've lived in for 35 years, I think about everything that's happened. The betrayal, the suffering, the fight, the victory. And I realize something profound. I'm not the woman who pretended to have dementia for 18 months. I'm not the victim who was locked in a room and left to die. I'm Margaret Eleanor Thorne, and I'm still here, still fighting, still teaching my last lesson. That dignity is not given, it's claimed. That justice requires courage. That love is a choice we make every single day, and that survival is not enough. We must also live. I smile as we walk into the sunlight of a new day.